Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So I watched the Framing Britney Spears documentary. It was released a week ago, just over a week ago, I think. Can't actually remember. It's been a whirlwind since the documentary was released, and so I watched it a day after it was released. Mainly because I couldn't figure out how to watch it here from the UK. I eventually found it on YouTube, which isn't the official platform to watch it on, but it was uploaded and that's where I watched it. Because initially it was only released in the US, but I think now because it's had such a big traction, they're going to release it in other parts of the world. The UK, I think, gets it tomorrow, as of me recording this. So initially I was reading the comments about the documentary on Twitter, and I was pleasantly surprised, or not even surprised, because I didn't know what to expect. So I'd seen the trailers to the documentary, but I obviously didn't know how Britney was being portrayed, if it was good, if it was bad, if it was neutral. I didn't know how she was being portrayed as a person, or how the conservatorship was being portrayed. But I was reading the comments on Twitter and they were largely in favour of Britney, and people were being called out for the way that they treated her. People were astonished to see some of the footage from the documentary which showcased the treatment that Britney has had to endure over her years as a celebrity. Some of the footage of her being hounded by the paparazzi is quite shocking. I don't think we've seen that level of harassment from paparazzi towards a celebrity in a really long time. People still get ripped to shreds in kind of online portals, on Instagram, on Twitter, in the newspapers, or whatever it may be, but it hasn't been to the extent that it was with Britney for such a long period of time, the way she got it in a very long time, which is why I think it's caused such a huge wave across the entertainment industry, and why it's also found its way into mainstream media, who have picked up on it and highlighted the treatment that she's received, and certain people who need to be called out, and I think most importantly, just the way in general that women especially are treated in the entertainment industry. So I watched the documentary. As a Britney fan, did I learn anything new about her that I didn't already know? No, I didn't. But I think there's probably people out there who aren't necessarily fans of hers, but may have watched the documentary out of curiosity, because she is the sort of person that garners a lot of attention and people just want to know about her. You either love her or you hate her. Even when you don't like her, I still find that people, even when they say they don't like her, they still enjoy reading up on her just so that they can hate her. So I think the documentary would have reached people who aren't necessarily fans of hers, and would have created an eye-opening moment for those individuals, especially in relation to understanding the cause of Britney's breakdown and why she is in the situation that she is currently in with regards to her conservatorship, and also bring or highlight the fact that it's questionable whether or not she should be in this conservatorship, and just drawing attention to her situation as a whole. So one of the things that stood out for me in this documentary was, number one, Felicia, who used to be Britney's assistant back in the day. they used to be really close. Felicia was kind of like the big sister, the aunt, who I believe had Britney's best interests at heart and wasn't there for the clout or anything like that. It was a world that was it was an opportunity that was given to her, which just turned out to be something much bigger than anyone possibly could have ever imagined it turning out to be. And I think she's a good person for Britney. I think she's a good influence on Britney. I think she looks out for Britney. But it seems like Felicia was kind of kicked out of Britney's inner circle by not Britney herself, but the conservatorship. I think the conservatorship has put a really tight, knitted group of people around Britney. And whether it's a good group of people or a bad group of people is debatable, but Felicia was certainly not invited to be in that circle, and it's caused a distancing between herself and Britney. But it was good to see Felicia take part in this documentary as someone who knows Britney very well, has worked with her and understands what Britney's capabilities are. And also someone who can just remind us as to why we fell in love with Britney to begin with, which Felicia has also said was her reason for wanting to take part in this documentary. She wants to remind people why they fell in love with Britney to begin with. And I thought she gave some really good insights into her position with Britney, but also not understanding the conservatorship and why it was needed for someone like Britney, who Felicia knows firsthand is capable, more than capable, of looking after herself. Another highlight of the documentary, which has caused major ripples, is the relationship with Justin Timberlake and the way that he handled their relationship breakdown. So I think most people will know that the song Cry Me a River was largely, we believe, about Britney. Neither he or Britney have ever come forward and said, yes, she cheated, this is what happened. It's all been insinuation through sly little comments or, the Britney lookalike in the video. I find it a bit weird that neither one of them have just come forward and said, yes, she cheated on me, or yes, I cheated on him, given how big the insinuation is. I think the way that he portrayed Britney after their breakup, not just through the song, I think the song we can put down to artistry. Lots of artists write songs about things that are personal to them and then release those songs for everyone to hear. The Britney lookalike in the video was probably, borderline a step too far, but back then they all used to kind of live off publicity stunts. So I'm kind of tempted to even put the lookalike down to artistry, although it's a very thin line and it's a very close to that line. Catch me on a good day, I'll put it down to artistry. Catch me on a bad day, I'll say it was on the wrong side of artistry and he was, borderline slandering her. But I think where he completely and utterly overstepped the mark was with the interviews, the sly, shady comments in performances at award shows, and all the rest of it, kind of slut-shaming her, villainising her while he played the good boy, the heartbroken good boy. That's where he went too far, and that's where the apology comes in. Because Justin absolutely milked his relationship with Britney, really took advantage of the fact that the name Britney Spears gets a lot of attention. Whether it's good attention or bad attention, it gets attention. And I think Justin knew that it would catapult his career and kind of helped give him a narrative that worked in his favour but destroyed her. And I think the documentary did a good job of highlighting their relationship, because once upon a time they were literally the power couple of all power couples. Like, you think about Posh and Bex. Posh and Bex would be nothing if Britney and Justin had stayed together. Like, Britney and Justin were literally a royalty couple in the world of Hollywood, in the industry. So their breakup was big news, and I think Justin really, really went to town with using their relationship to his advantage and just completely destroying her reputation and her good name in the process. And, you know, there's a lot of people who would say, oh, you know, he was young, he was heartbroken, he just did what he did because that's how he felt in the moment. But I don't agree with that, because he did it for years. Like, he literally used her name for years following their breakup. He could have just released the song and the lookalike in the video and just left it at that. But he dragged it on for as long as he possibly could. The documentary highlighted that. It highlighted that he slut-shamed her whilst playing the heartbroken innocent boy. It also highlighted the way that this was the beginning of Britney's reputation being tarnished, and that in return resulting in even more scrutiny towards her. The paparazzi hounded her, they sold their pictures to the magazines who sold their stories. It was all about money, because a good picture of Britney would easily get 6 figures or even up to $1 million, which is probably what the photos of Britney with her head shaved and Britney with the umbrella, that's kind of the money that we're looking at for pictures like that. And these grown-ass men with their cameras fully harassed her because they wanted the $1 million shots. And I think when you watch it all in one go, when you kind of watch these series of events unfolding and it's all consolidated into a documentary like the Framing Britney Spears documentary, it's no wonder that she lashed out the way that she did. I mean, she was being absolutely hounded. The love of her life, her first love, has completely and utterly betrayed some of the most deeply personal things about her. He's out there talking about their sex life. It's one thing to be heartbroken, but to talk about your sex life in such a grotesque way is another thing. Because, like, ultimately what Justin did was get into a relationship with someone he works with, and then at the end of the relationship he bad-mouthed her to all of her colleagues, to all of the people above her, to all of the people below her, to all of her customers. That's essentially what he did. You wouldn't be able to get away with that in a normal working environment. But Justin did in the entertainment industry, because women are second-rate citizens compared to men. And watching it all in this 1 hour and however long documentary, it really puts things into perspective in terms of what she was going through at that time. When everyone was making jokes about her, we were all laughing at her, all these stories are being told about her, Justin is slamming her down into the ground and just ruining her reputation at every opportunity that he could. It's a lot to take on, especially when you're so young, because she was only like early 20s at the time. And then she gets into her relationship with Kevin Federline, they get married, they have the baby. It got even more attention. It just drew more and more and more attention to her, because now we've got this young girl. Like, we all have this image of Britney in the schoolgirl outfit, her first music video, a classic. Anytime we talk about Britney, these are kind of the screenshots that we get of her. And I think a lot of people at the time just couldn't get past the idea that Britney was now a growing woman, going into adulthood and we just weren't letting her grow up, and the thoughts of her having a baby was like, oh my god, when in reality she's a grown woman, she's an adult, and she's, getting married and having a baby. So what? We should have just left her alone. Everyone should have left her alone and just let her have her moment of being married and having a brand new baby. And that's a beautiful time, or at least it should be a beautiful time. But for Britney, it's all been tarnished because, we've got comedians making jokes about Britney's adorable mistakes. How anyone could have thought that was an appropriate joke is beyond me. We had the paparazzi who were just still continuously going at her, just terrorising her, even when she's got her baby with her. So we've all seen the image of Britney with little baby Sean on her lap while she's driving. And that image, that one shot image, which then gets sold to the papers or the magazines, and then they release it with the narrative of Britney the bad mother. That's what sticks in everyone's mind. And unless you're a Britney fan, you probably wouldn't have seen the interview where she was asked about that, and she explained it. And she basically said, I've got my young baby, I'm scared. All these paparazzis are kind of all over me with their cameras, flashing lights. She's at her car, they're all over the car, back then, they used to get all up on your car, like literally touching the car, leaning on the car, possibly rocking the car back and forth. As a brand new mother, that's going to be a scary situation. She's at this point, 24, 25 years old? Brand new mother. Her baby is literally a matter of months old. He's not even a year. That's a scary situation to have all of those paparazzi literally on her car when she's there with her baby. And in that moment, she decided, I want to hold my baby and have him close to me, but I also need to get away from this situation. Did she think it through clearly? No, probably not. But in that situation, what conclusion would you come up with when you're that scared? You're being hounded by people. You've got all these flashing lights in your baby's eyes. What would you do in those split through few seconds that you have to make an adequate decision? Because paparazzi back then, even now they don't have very many morals, but back then they were absolutely vicious. Because I can't help but think, if she has made the decision to put Sean in the back seat of the car, in the baby seat, would she still have been portrayed as a bad mother? Because I can just imagine little baby Sean in the back seat of the car crying his little heart out because of the situation that he's in, with all of these scary men banging on the windows of the car, flashing lights, etc. Scared the way you would expect a baby to be scared in a situation like that, and them taking pictures of the baby crying in the back seats of the car, selling that to the magazines, where the magazines will then say, look, Britney doesn't take care of her children, she left them in the back seats of the car even though he was crying and she didn't attend to him. That's what I see the alternative story as being. If she hadn't have done what she had done, I think it would have been that. I think with someone like Britney, there's just no winning. It doesn't matter if she drove with Sean on her lap to get away from a scary situation as quickly as possible, or taken the time to put him into the back seats of the car where they then would have taken the pictures of him crying and sold it on as Britney not looking after her son in a scary situation. They would have found a way to flip it on her. I don't think she would have gotten away with that situation either way. And it's not a situation that she put herself in. The paparazzi should know, if you've got a brand new mother with her baby, that might be the time where you go, okay, we need to take a step back, if not for her, for the baby at least. If you don't give a damn about Britney, if she's so famous and so rich that you don't care about Britney, at least care about the baby and what this might be doing to the baby and what your flashing lights might be doing to the baby. But they didn't think about that, and yet Britney was the one who was portrayed as a bad mother. And that harassment just continued. It continued and continued and continued. And it's no wonder that she eventually broke the way that she did, because if you think about it, she's lived pretty much her entire life from the tender age of even 10, where she's being asked personal questions. You know, she's this incredibly gifted, talented young lady whose talent isn't enough. You know, you've got a 10-year-old Britney on Star Search being asked if she has a boyfriend. What does that have to do with this incredible voice that was so much more mature than her years? Why couldn't the guy interviewing her, or the presenter, or whoever he was, have just said to her, "You've got an incredible voice, that's amazing. Why does it need to be, do you have a boyfriend?" When she was a teenager and she was doing a press conference at 17, 18, or however old she was, why was the question, "Are you a virgin?" seen as appropriate? She's a singer, she's a dancer, she's an actress. Why do you need to know about her sex life and whether or not she has one? Are you a virgin? That is so inappropriate. Why was that seen as a suitable question to ask in a press conference? And Britney rather naively answered the question. I don't know if she had been media trained at this point or not. I'm assuming not, because then she probably would have had a better answer rather than actually answering the question, which then just got even more attention to her. But I think it also highlights the people that were in Britney's team at the time, because you would assume that she had a manager there or someone there kind of overseeing what was going on, given that Britney was so young when she was asked that question about whether or not she was a virgin, or when she's in an interview with that male interviewer who asked her about her boobs. You would think her manager or some adult, someone who understands the industry, someone who has the balls to step in and say, "Stop, you can't ask her that question. That's not appropriate. She's a teenager. She's a singer, she's a dancer, she's an actress. You don't need to know about her boobs. You don't need to know if she's had sex or not. That's not an appropriate question. Don't ask her that. Don't ask her it now. Don't ask her it again." And that goes for everyone else, all of you other journalists. Where was that person who should have been the one to step in and say no? Because Britney was just a teenager and she was still learning about the industry at this point. We forget that she was basically the first major teenage female artist to come out at this time. There was no Christina Aguilera, there was no Jessica Simpson, there was no Mandy Moore, there was none of them. It was Britney first, and then all the others came. Britney didn't have anyone to learn from. What she needed was someone there to have her back, and she didn't get it. She's been let down from the get-go. She's been let down and abused from the get-go. So then we get into Britney's breakdown. It started off with at her home, where, as we understand it, she wouldn't give back her children to Kevin, who at the time had kind of split custody over the children, and that somehow led to her being strapped to a chair and been taken away in an involuntarily hold. I forget what the technical term is, a 5150, something like that, I don't know. But we've all seen the images of her being taken away and all the ambulances. It was breaking news at the time. She's then discharged. She then goes and gets the tattoo and she shaves her head, We've all seen those images. We see the images with her and the umbrella attacking the paparazzi car. These would have been the $1 million shots that the paparazzi were ultimately after. And that was Britney's breakdown. That was her breaking point of, this is too much. And the documentary highlighted the fact that everyone just laughed. It was a joke. Nobody came to her defence. Nobody said, this has gone on too far, we've taken it too far, look at what we've done to her. It was a joke. Everyone just laughed. It was also the beginning of the conservatorship, which to this day is still running. It's been near enough 13 years, and she's in this conservatorship, which was the reason that I personally wanted to watch the documentary. I was hoping we would get a bit more information about the conservatorship, but I guess because it's still a very live legal situation, they probably can't get into it as much as they would like, and they probably can't even share the speculations around the conservatorship in case they kind of sway it one way or another. So they didn't really get into the full details of the conservatorship, but they did question whether or not she needs to be in this conservatorship. So I personally had never even heard of a conservatorship until Britney was put in one. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea that they existed. Turns out they do, and Britney's not the only one in a conservatorship. There's lots of people out there who have been placed into the care of others. But what I do understand about them is that it's usually for elderly people or people who have been deemed to not be mentally able to take care of themselves and their finances. So Britney's dad, I believe, says that the conservatorship is required and he should be the one to do it because he's looking out for her. He's, stopping any other influences from getting into Britney's life, and he's basically just protecting her. That doesn't make sense to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, she's clearly a high-performing individual. She's been touring, she's got the Las Vegas residency, she was a judge on the X Factor, she's had acting gigs since then. She's capable. If she was so incapable that she needed to be in a conservatorship, she wouldn't be capable enough to do all of those other things. For me personally, she is mentally capable of looking after herself. The second thing that doesn't sit right with me is if Britney's best interests were the reason for the conservatorship, why is it a matter of months? They didn't even wait a year. Literally within a matter of months, she was back in the spotlight. She was acting, she was getting the album, she was recording her album, she was getting ready to tour again, rehearsals. They had her back on the VMAs stage, the infamous performance that she got absolutely ripped to shreds for. If the conservatorship was for her benefit, why was she thrown back out into the very limelight that tore her down to begin with? If it was about Britney and looking after her, surely her own dad would have said, "You're coming home. I don't want you in this situation anymore. They've built you up and they've dragged you back down again. I don't like the way that they've treated you. I don't like the way that you've been portrayed in the media. You're my daughter, you're coming home, and you're going to live a normal life for the foreseeable future." Financially, she's stable enough to do that. She didn't need to go back to work the way that she did. And even if there was a financial struggle going on behind the scenes, she could have just dropped one album. One album would have fixed that. She's got fans all over the world. One album would have fixed all that. She didn't need to do all the rest. Even just the X Factor gig would have fixed all of that. But they've had her doing way, way more than what she needs to do to get back to a point of secure financial security, if that's the narrative that they're going to use. But it doesn't make sense that she was thrown back into the limelight as quickly as she was. It also doesn't make sense to me how, when Britney's dad had his health issues, which is the reason that was cited for her cancelling her Domination Las Vegas residency. So Britney's dad has, let me backtrack here and give kind of the context around it. Britney is in a conservatorship that not only controls her finances and her estate, but it also controls Britney as a person. And Jamie is the conservatorship for, or was the conservatorship for, both the finances side and as the person. He was controlling both sides. But when he had his health scare, and he needed to take a step back and just focus on himself, interestingly, he let go of his role on Britney the person, but he kept the finances. I find that really interesting. Like, if you had a health issue which meant that you need to step down from the conservatorship, surely your reason for this conservatorship, which in this case, allegedly, apparently, according to him, is to take care of Britney. He loves Britney, he wants to protect her. Surely you then would have kept Britney the person and let someone else take care of the finances. But the fact that he kept the finances but he let go of the person speaks volumes to me. And it shows us what he is most concerned with, what he refuses to let go of. That doesn't sit right with me at all. I think we also need to ask ourselves why today Britney is only worth 60 million. So 60 million is a lot of money, right? But it's less than what she was worth when she went into the conservatorship. And given that she's one of the highest paid X Factor judges, she's the second highest paid Las Vegas residency artist. She's done that for multiple years. You would expect her income or her net worth to be much higher than it currently is. So, you have to ask the question, where is all her money? Given she's been raking it in for years upon years upon years whilst in this conservatorship. Where's all her money? I think that's one of the questions that allegedly has been posed to Jamie, and there hasn't been a very good answer given there. Someone needs to deep dive into her finances. I think we're kind of at the beginning stages of that's happening, because since the documentary was released, the judge has officially ruled that Britney's dad, Jamie, needs to be a co-conservator of her finances, which he needs to share with this, I forget what the company's called, it begins with a B, but they're like a professional finance company, and they are now co-conservators over her finances along with her dad. So if her dad's been doing anything fishy, it's going to be harder for him to get away with it now than it has been for him previously. He may need to answer up a bit more than he has done previously on where Britney's money goes. So I think that was a good step in Britney's favour. It's still not where Britney wants to be. I think people forget that Britney currently is not trying to get out of the conservatorship. She's simply trying to remove her dad. She wants other people. She's not dismissing the conservatorship itself. She just wants it to be run by anyone other than Britney's dad. Because what education and authority does Britney's dad have to be deemed to be the best person to do his job? this job. He's not a finance person, so what makes him think that he can control Britney's finances? This is a lot of money, and unless you're educated in finances and taxes and all the rest of it, you need people who literally dream in numbers, and not in the way of, I'm going to steal from my daughter. No, people who actually understand numbers and how to invest and where to put it and what you should and shouldn't agree to in terms of spending. Her dad isn't qualified to do that, so why he's been given all of this authority is mysterious to me, especially given Britney is the one who is actively making all of this money. This isn't, money that's coming in from a passive income. This isn't money that's coming in from historical things that she did pre the breakdown. She's actively making all of this money through tours, through judging, through acting, through the perfume line, through the lingerie line. She's doing all of these things, and she has been doing all of these things whilst in the conservatorship. How is it that she's deemed capable enough to mentor someone on the X Factor, but she's not deemed capable enough to look after herself? It doesn't make sense in the slightest. I think she went through a really terrible time in her life, lost her way a little bit, the way most people would. Like, what she went through was horrific, and she's paying the price for that for an extremely long time. She hasn't been forgiven for just losing sight of who and what she is. All she needs is some very good people around her that she can trust, and a finance manager who can help her control her money. Not control it for her fully, but just help support her and make sure that she doesn't go bankrupt. She doesn't need controlling. She doesn't need a conservatorship, in my opinion. She's clearly a high-performing individual who is capable of memorizing lines for her acting, who is capable of doing complex dance routines for her 1.5 hour performances, whether it's on a tour or on the Las Vegas residency stage. That's a high-performing individual. That's a lot of stress. That's a lot of grueling hours put into a performance that she is the one doing. But yet she is the one who is deemed as not being capable enough to look after herself. It doesn't make sense at all. So I don't think we've got enough in terms of the conservatorship, but like I say, it's probably because it's still an ongoing situation, and there's probably a risk of being sued if they dove into that a bit too much. Something else that has happened since the documentary aired is Justin Timberlake released his apology over Instagram to both Britney and Janet Jackson for the way that he treated them, for the things that he said, and for the things that he didn't say in the situation with Britney and Janet. Nearly 20 years too late, but better late than never, I guess one could say. For me, I guess the question mark is over whether or not the apology was authentic. I personally don't think it was. I think he's only apologising because the documentary went so viral and garnered so much attention and so much noise, and his behaviours in particular were highlighted as being disgusting towards Britney. The way he used the relationship to enhance his career has finally been called out, not just by her fans but by the industry. It got itself into mainstream news and he is being called out, and if you're going to call him out on what he did to Britney, it was only a matter of time before people brought up the way that he treated Janet Jackson as well, especially given that the Super Bowl also happened. It was a timing thing. It just happened to be so close to the Super Bowl, which always brings back to what happened with Janet Jackson and the way that he treated her. So he put this apology up. First of all, did he write the apology, or was it a PR person who wrote it and he just approved it? I think a video apology would have been better than a written apology. Apologising to both of them in one Instagram post is pathetic. Considering what he did to these women, it's pathetic. And also, if you didn't know all of the details of what he did to Britney and what he did to Janet, if you read that apology, that pathetic apology on Instagram, you wouldn't really know what he was apologising for, because he doesn't specifically say what he did to them. He acknowledges that he benefited from... In fact, I don't think he even acknowledged that he benefited from their downfalls. I think he just wishy-washy flaked around it with, I never want to apologise, or I never want to benefit from someone else's downfall ever again. But he doesn't specifically say that he slandered Britney to boost his own career, and that he sat out the backlash that Janet was getting and he didn't defend her because he was too frightened for his own career. He doesn't specifically set out what he's apologising for. It was a weak, pathetic apology, and I don't think it's one that will do him very many favours. There were a few comments from a few of his, I guess, celebrity friends who were like, oh yeah, brother, love it, well done, inspirational. But the majority of the comments on that post were, you're only doing this because you had to, no one believes this, you're a piece of shit. Jessica Biel, she should have sat this one out. I think she wrote, I love you, on that post. You can support your husband, but sometimes just do it privately, don't do it publicly, especially in a scenario like this. And I think she should have just not done anything, shouldn't have liked it, she shouldn't have responded to it. Especially given that she knew all of this about him before she got into the relationship with him. She would have known that he used Britney's career to boost his own. She knew what he'd done to Janet, and she still got into the relationship with him. And a mere, how many months has it been? Literally months we're talking, where he was caught being sloppy with another woman whilst Jessica was at home pregnant. Justin had to issue a public apology to Jessica for being sloppy with another woman, and now he's having to apologise for things that he did years and years and years ago because he's finally being called out on it. Jessica should have just sat down and piped down and not done anything, given he's got such a big reputation of being awful towards women, using women as objects. And he hasn't stopped, because he's done it to Jessica Biel. He disrespected her in the most highest manner that you could while she was at home pregnant with his baby. He's off with other women. She's just as complicit as everyone was when he was doing it all those years ago. I think she should have sat that one out, because I think her response to it got quite a lot of attention. And for me, it was like, oh, Jessica, don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. I get you want to support your husband, but don't do it publicly. Now is not the time. He's not getting the best response to this apology. There's a lot of people who are now accusing him of only doing it because he had to. Because Britney's fans have been calling for an apology for years. Janet Jackson's fans have been calling for an apology for years, and they've not received it. And they're only getting it now because the Framing Britney Spears documentary went viral, and it went viral on a mainstream media kind of way. It went way beyond her fans. I thought it was a lame apology, but I think what it will do now is stop him from making any more snidey comments about her, because he still does it when it suits him. It's not something that he did when he was heartbroken or did when he was having a bad day and was being interviewed. It's something that he carried on doing for years and years and years after they had broken up. And even when he was dating other women, he was still making snidey comments about Britney, because Britney has the power. It's a powerful name. If you talk about Britney, you're going to make it into the headlines. And for him, talking down on her got him lots of attention. And it worked. Would his career be where it is now without her? I don't think it would be. Because Cry Me a River was not his first single from that album. There was another single before Cry Me a River which was lukewarm. People didn't really give a shit. People only started giving a shit when he started talking about Britney. And it was a tactics that worked, so he carried on doing it. And it's continued to work. And now, finally, after nearly 20 years, the tables are turning. He may have won in the short run, but Britney's graciousness has had her win the ultimate title here. She won the long race because it's turning around on him. People don't respect Justin Timberlake anymore. He's not going to leave a good legacy because he's been so god-awful to other people. He has actively brought other people down to build his own career up. And he picked women to do it. And not just any old women, he picked legends to do it too. And I think that's like where it all goes wrong. But let me know what you think. That's my kind of thoughts and take on the documentary. I think there's a lot more still that needs to be said, but that will only be said in a more official documentary that involves like Britney herself, in her own words. Hopefully this is the beginning of the light at the end of the tunnel, and she will break free from the constraints that she's in and be able to live a more freer life. But I guess time will tell. But until next time, I will see you soon, guys. If I've left anything out, let me know. If there's anything you want to add to this, let me know. If you agree or disagree, let me know. I'm really curious as to what people think about this and how much people know. Because I think her fans, because they kind of deep dive into everything, they see all of the discrepancies that I think mainstream media don't always share. But it will be good to get your guys' thoughts on this as well. So let me know what you think. And until next time, I'll see you again soon. Bye.